obviously, when you have huge spikes in reviews, you're getting flagged. And it's become a lot more common with AI and the algorithms being like more sophisticated, and they're able to pinpoint a lot more patterns. It all comes down to the same thing.
You've probably had it happen. A customer swears that they left you a 5-star review. You wait, but nothing shows up. Or worse, you post, but then it disappears 4 days later. No warning, no email, no explanation. And here's the scary part. It is not just random. There are algorithmic filters that most businesses don't even realize exist. And now AI is starting to determine what exactly matters when it comes to local pack rankings. And it may not be what you think.
So I don't know why Google does this, because it's like so confusing. And there's so many different scenarios. Like it's like reviews publish and then they're gone and then they come back. But I think it all comes down to the same thing. There's unusual patterns going on that Google's detecting. Categories in general that like normally don't get 3 to 4 reviews a day, and all of a sudden you're jumping that high. You have to expect that something's going to go astray. I've seen it where reviews will go up for 3 months and then boom, all the reviews get deleted and then you're slapped on with the review manipulation. So you have to be very careful. You have to make sure that.
Today, I'm sitting down with one of the most respected faces in the local SEO space, Claudia Tomina. If you manage reviews or run local SEO for clients or depend on Google for leads at all, this episode is going to change how you think about everything. So let's get into it. All right. So I've got a good question to start us off here. Why do Google reviews disappear? And what is the number one thing that most businesses don't know about why?
So in my opinion, I think the number one reason Google reviews don't appear or disappear is because there's no real activity between the reviewer and the business. So let's just say, you were referred to the business and then you ask them to leave you a review and you share the, link that Google provides you. And then they end up leaving you a review. There's a high likelihood that that review will get filtered out because they never engaged with your Google business profile prior to that. So Google may look at that as a flag.
Interesting. So let's say, for example, I went to a business because I saw their billboard or something. Like not everybody that interacts with the business came from Google. So are you saying that like if I didn't first search for them and maybe click on their call button, like I'm less likely to have that review published?
Yes, that's my belief. So I actually learned this tip from Vinay. He's another product expert. And he always says, like, just have the reviewer go back, engage in the profile, hit the call button or the direction button, go back to the review, maybe edit it, and then post. It's just frustrating because a lot of times you don't want to have to ask a client to do that. But the reality is it actually works.
Okay. So any other tips that business owners should do? Like if they're in this boat where the reviews aren't publishing, what is the step to get them to publish? What do you do about it?
I mean, it's complicated and I think it varies industry by industry. But if we're looking at, the average plumber or electrician that doesn't generate a whole lot of reviews, and they're just, I think the best way for them to get their reviews to publish is to have the user search the business on Google Maps, and then leave the review. So like branded searches, in my opinion, are more likely to stick. The review's more likely to stick. But if you're going to use a review link that Google provides you, you're more likely to get filtered out.
So I actually saw something really interesting recently. A guy sent me a link to review them on Yelp, but instead of going to their Yelp listing, it actually went to a Google search result for their business name plus Yelp. And I was thinking like that must be intentional because now you're going to Google, you're clicking on Yelp, and then you are leaving a business review there. Whereas I feel like Yelp is filtering out people that are coming directly from the link. And, Yelp, they're crazy. They basically don't want any businesses soliciting reviews at all. So one of the ways I think they track that is by, people that directly click and go to a link. They're like, oh, that's a business that's asking for reviews. So do you think that Google is doing something a little similar then, but maybe on like a lesser scale?
I do. It's there's got to be something in the algorithm with that link or like a QR code that's like basically saying, okay, there's a more likelihood that this could be a solicited review or a non-authentic review or something. Or maybe the reviewer themselves doesn't really leave a ton of reviews, I know Yelp kind of filters out people that aren't very active on their platform and then all of a sudden start leaving reviews. I actually work with a restoration company that has right now 15 reviews that are not recommended. And there's only one published review. So think about that. Like, he must be sending the review link from Yelp and not realizing that none of it is getting published.
Wild. Okay. So let me back this up. You're saying that like sharing a link to a review page, like on Google, let's make sure we're talking about Google here. Google actually promotes people to do this. Like, they actually prompt you to do this inside the Google Business Profile dashboard. They're like, share this link, share this QR code to get reviews. Right. So are you saying that like Google's telling you to do this one thing, yet they're actually kind of almost punishing businesses that are doing it?
Yeah. And I don't know if it was like intentional. I think there's just different teams that create these products. And I think that this is such a great idea. Let's, like, everybody wants a QR code to ask for reviews. Like, let's add this to the profile manager. But then at the same time, there could be another team that's working in the review and algorithms, and they're studying things, and they say, all right, if there is no engagement, and then we see that there's a direct link to the review page, then, that could be a flag. So, branded searches just always work well. And like, as a local guide, when I go into Google Maps, I could see like they're asking me to leave reviews on anything that I've searched, even if I've never actually used the business. So I could be searching for a hotel, a restaurant, and then if I go back, it asks me to contribute a review, and I've never even been there.
So are you suggesting then basically for businesses that are asking for reviews that they don't link directly to their business profile, they linked to a search results page then with like a branded search already inserted? Is that safer?
Exactly that. Yeah. I mean, like Reputation Arm, that's the way we process review requests when we solicit reviews for our clients. We are not using any type of QR code. We're not using the link that Google provides. It's a branded search. And then at the end of the day, that's like helping you with rankings. And I've actually, like, Mike Blumenthal and I have discussed, like, is it the review that's actually boosting you, or is it that branded search that's actually boosting? We don't really know. It's still a click and engagement on your Google business profile. So it's that navigational boost that you want to get. And I've seen, like, when I send out campaigns for clients, I could see their rankings jump up for the day. And then, it comes back down.
When you say campaigns, you mean like review requests, like you're emailing a bunch of people to leave them reviews?
Right. So like it could have been like 50 to 100 or 500 requests that day that went out by email or whatever it was. And you'll almost always certainly see an increase because you've had that many more clicks on your Google business profile. So it's that engagement. And it's not that they necessarily left the review, because sometimes you get 10 clicks, but only 3 reviews appear.
And you find that like that engagement, because it's one time, it doesn't really last, right? Like, so you said they jump up in rankings for like the day, but then they go back down.
It never lasts. Yes.
Okay. That's similar to what we found when we did a test on CTR manipulation. I had Brand Fishkin on here about a year ago on our YouTube channel, and he did a test where he just asked a whole bunch of people to go out and click on this Thai restaurant, I believe. And they definitely went up in rankings. They were on like page 2. They went up to the top 3 within like a pretty short time window of when we were doing it. And I shared all the screenshots and graphs and stuff, but they certainly didn't stay there. They went back down. And I've heard from people that do this intentionally to manipulate Google. Like, if you don't keep doing it, it doesn't work. Like long term.
Do you think it like hurts them too? Like if they've done it for so long and then all of a sudden it just stops?
Yeah. So funny enough, we actually discussed this, me and Ben Fisher, on a previous episode. So if you didn't watch that episode, Ben Fisher, definitely check that out, because I asked him the similar question. I feel like he always gets the cases of people that get like the worst penalties and the worst things when it comes to GDP. And he said he has. So he said he told this crazy story of this company that was doing CTR manipulation and got suspensions from it. So it's kind of wild. But again, it's not something I would say is very common, but I certainly have seen this be used as a negative SEO factor. So I can say confidently that it does do that. Like if you start doing a lot of kind of suspicious activity and Google thinks that you are doing it intentionally to inflate your business and they catch you, they can do the opposite where you tank. So I've talked to enough people to know that that is possible, which is terrifying. Nobody should be able to do that to a business in a negative way. And that's the problem with Google. They try to go after tactics. They try to do it in a way that doesn't make negative SEO work. And it's a really challenging thing to do, because they can't just, right? Because like if they start penalizing people for this, it's like, well, then all the people will just do it to their competitors. Like it's a tough spot to be in. I really don't know.
Or like you can have like that viral post and then you're going to see your rankings jump up. Like you'll definitely see, I've seen it with a client where all of a sudden, like I emailed them and I'm like, what did you guys do? What kind of event did you have on this day for these? Like, it was like, it lasted like 4 days. And it's because they had Detroit Lions team host a dinner and somebody posted something, it went viral and everyone was doing brand searches on the restaurant. And so you could just see like huge spikes in Google business profile interactions.
Right. Which is totally normal.
Yeah.
Now I want to ask you 2 questions. The first one being, if you're a business that maybe like you didn't know any of this, so you were just doing the way you said not to do it. You're sending out QR codes, you're sending out links to your business listing. Your reviews aren't sticking. Okay. So let's say you have hundreds of reviews that have not published and you're frustrated. Can you do anything about that? Can you do anything about reviews that were left and then never published?
I don't think so. Like I've never had success but I've never seen a case where, they claim hundreds of reviews, like they actually get published, but then they get deleted. It's typically what I've seen. So because you're not going to know if you had 100, you're not going to know the exact number. And plus you can't trust the client when they're telling you this, unless you can actually see, like, okay, yeah, these published and then they were deleted. So I think, obviously when you have huge spikes in reviews, you're getting flagged. And it's become a lot more common in this last like 6 months to a year with, maybe with AI and the algorithms being like more sophisticated and they're able to pinpoint a lot more patterns. So the idea is if you're I'm dealing with a thread in the forum right now. It's a roofer. And he said that his reviews are not getting published. And then I asked him what category he was in and how many reviews he was getting. He said he's averaging 3 to 4 reviews a day as a roofer, which is like totally unheard of, right?
Yeah.
So I told him,
big roofing company. How big a company are they? Like that's
right.
That's
and he's like, well, we scaled up and we've been scaling. And I said, well, Google is looking at these patterns and it's not normal, especially for your industry. And so, wait it out. If you're telling me that this is your new normal, then my suggestion would be to keep doing it so that you can make it your new normal if you could sustain it. But if you are doing this, some type of campaign or review manipulation, it's going to work. It's not going to work for you. It's going to be a disadvantage. And that's definitely the way not to go. But yeah, when you're in like sensitive categories or just categories in general that like normally don't get 3 to 4 reviews a day, and all of a sudden you're jumping that high, you have to expect that something's gonna go astray. Like, especially now more than ever. Like maybe you could get away with it a year ago, but you're not going to get away with it anymore. And it's been pretty consistent.
So I have a lawyer that I spoke to earlier this week, and they are in a pretty unfortunate situation, which I've definitely run into before, where their previous SEO company, I think, was buying reviews for them because they had a bunch that went missing that they were like, we actually don't even know where these reviews came from. Like, we don't recognize
But how do they know that they're not buying reviews, right? They're not their clients.
I mean, yeah, he probably knew at the time, right? This is one of those things. Yeah. It's like you live and learn. But a lot of people do it and they justify it because it works so well. And I can't justify it. I'm like, it's just morally can't get behind it. But I know a lot of businesses do because the benefit outweighs the risk. The risk is you might lose the reviews. Well, I would say the risk actually isn't just that. It's now this particular law firm, they're having a really hard time getting any new reviews to publish. So they're getting real people now that are trying to leave them reviews and they're not publishing. And I've seen that pattern where if you have a lot of reviews removed and if Google's like, hey, your patterns are suspicious, it almost like lowers your trust. I think I discussed this a bit with like Brad Wetherell, right? It lowers the trust of the profile. And then the profile, if it's like lower trust, you're going to have a harder time getting those reviews to stick, which is like a self-defeating circle, right? Because how do you get out of it? So it's really tricky. Well, what would you advise in that scenario?
I would advise them to make sure that they're clicking on the profile and engaging somewhere, like call directions, a booking link, something. And then it might actually stick that way. But then they're going to have to put so much effort into doing that because, I mean, a lot of personal injury lawyers, estate lawyers, they're like all referrals. So somebody can just call you or land on your website. You don't necessarily know exactly, but I would say possibly like maybe that like them engaging would be more of a trust signal for Google, and then maybe they would publish. But they also have to like there's other like things that I've noticed that like in patterns, like not just like we're talking a lot about service area businesses, but like in my industry, like I work a lot with restaurants and things like that, and just learning from the forum, I'll notice like let's just say a big group of guests are at a restaurant and they're very disappointed, and they all decide to leave a negative review at the same time. They don't actually publish. Google sees that as Google can see that as a review attack.
So maybe it depends on the location. So I actually had this happen, and I think they were actually all different customers, but we had dinner for Valentine's Day at this, like one of my favorite restaurants. And this restaurant screwed up royally. They basically booked out all these things in advance, had people prepay for their meals in advance, and they were expensive because it was Valentine's Day. And then they got behind. So we didn't even get our like first thing when we were there for like an hour. Like we were waiting there for an hour, and then they finally bring us like appetizers. And I was like, this is bad because we're the first wave. I'm like, the fact that they're that behind, they're going to be screwed later. So by the time we left at like 7, there was a lineup around the entire restaurant of all these people with their Valentine's dates who had already prepaid, who were pissed, who had to wait for an hour. So this restaurant got, I think 11, I counted, which is a lot for them. It's not a huge restaurant. You got 11 negative reviews all on that same night from various guests. I don't think they were connected to each other per se, but they all published. So, I mean, then they were probably legitimate. I don't know if any of them were together in the same party or not, but I assumed they were going to get negative reviews based on those experiences.
So I should actually clarify. It's when it's in the same household, where they're like mother, daughter, things like that, that I'll notice that they like, or the same last names, that they're not going to get published.
Got it. Okay.
But there are times where like, you know, there's big parties, and then one person leaves a review today, and then the next day 2-3 more trickle in, and you could tell it's from the same party. Those will stick because they are leaving it from different accounts at different times, but it's that cluster of like maybe within the same minute, and then they can correlate different things or the same location that you might find that Google will flag it and then not publish it. But they can go back and edit it and publish.
Interesting. Okay. So the back and edit, you mentioned that earlier. That is like a good idea. So would you suggest that as well for this law firm? Like they said they had a bunch of their clients leave a review and they weren't publishing. Like, is there any point in going back and trying to edit the reviews?
I will tell you that every single time I recommend this to a client, it works. If you run into a situation where your reviews are not publishing on your profile, ask your client or customer to go back into their review, maybe edit a word or two, or prior to that, hit the call button, directions button, go back to the review, edit something, and then republish it. And it almost always will publish after that.
Okay.
The only bad thing is it's like annoying to have to ask them to do it, because it's, you know, like just to get them to leave the review in the first place, but then to have to go out of your way to ask them to like, hey, can you just like go back and edit and then publish it? But that's what you have to do.
All right. What is the difference between a review that never posts versus a review that originally shows up fine, but then later on Google removes it? Is that triggered like differently inside Google? Like, do they have different systems for these two different things, or is it all the same?
Yeah. So there's going to be that pre-algorithm that's going to like scan the review. One thing Google has become really good at in the last year is removing reviews from employees. So before it'd be like, oh, I worked here, and then we'd have to like escalate in the forum, which was absolutely ridiculous because it was a clear violation. It was said in the review. I've noticed that at this point, like I don't see many of those much anymore. I think Google's just gotten really smart and they can pinpoint those. And if it can't pick up on it, if you flag it, most likely it'll fall off before you even have to escalate anything. But yeah, so if there's like, you know, just like something that's like I just posted it today on LinkedIn, a review that said, I was told I'd get something free for publishing this review. So here's my review. And Google removed it, which I thought was funny because isn't that against the policy? But like if they, you know, like if it runs through, you know, like the initial algorithm and Google can see a clear violation, most likely it's not getting published. Or if it's like coming from Pakistan, I think they're getting a little bit better removing those type of reviews. But a lot of times just flagging the review is working really, really well lately. Do you find that?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what it is, right? So it depends on how obvious it is. I think the obvious ones, flagging usually works. It's generally the non-obvious ones that people are like, oh, this isn't a real experience, where there's really no evidence or proof, right? Those are usually the ones that business owners freak out about. And they're not wrong. It's really easy for somebody just to go fake an experience. And how would Google know, right? That is frustrating. One of the trends, however, that I've been following, which I'm curious to know if you've seen and what you think about it, is someone was telling me on our subreddit. So we have a subreddit over on Reddit called Local Search. And there was a user there that was saying that he's been noticing this new trend where a review will publish and then 4 to 5 days later, it gets removed. And I was curious if that's like a bug, or he's convinced it's a bug. But I was curious if you think that's a bug, or if that's just like the way that Google is doing it now, where they kind of let it sit for a minute and then are like, no, that's gone.
So it's definitely not a bug. I think it's very intentional. I think a lot of things we think are bugs, we come to realize like, okay, this was by design and it is intentional, especially like if there's no quick resolution within the first like month or like even them maybe like making an announcement, then yes, it's very intentional. So I think I've seen this trend. I've had a couple people reach out to me directly, like explaining like this exact scenario where they publish and then they disappear. My guess is that they're getting queued and then there's some type of human intervention, like looking at it and then determining whether it's actually like legit or not. But there's got to be something on that profile that triggered it. So whether it's like a pattern of an increase in reviews, abnormal category that's receiving like more reviews than other, businesses in that same vertical. They could be like causing them to go into a queue and then having that looked at manually. I do still think like, yes, there's the algorithms that Google uses, but there still probably is a lot of human intervention to make sure that they're perfecting the algorithms and making sure they're getting it right.
I think there's more human interaction than Google wants there to be at this point. But yeah.
Yeah.
So this is, I wanted to ask you, what actually triggers a review block on a Google business profile? Is it always like they think you've bought reviews, obviously, but have you seen that it's like certain types of policy violations that usually result in that?
Yeah. It's so in the, like, I've probably dealt with this I've dealt with this a handful of times, and it's always the same exact pattern. So if you're going to be put in review jail, where like you actually have it labeled, Google labels your business as,
Yeah, I think they say like this business has been caught with suspicious reviews or something like that.
So yeah, definitely if you get put into review jail, then all the cases that I've dealt with where that label was slapped onto the Google business profile, they had really high, unusual review volumes. So they had an event like an open house or like grand opening, or even just like an anniversary, because I had it for a business that existed for quite some time and then had some type of anniversary party and decided to ask everybody that came to leave a review. So imagine like all these people are at the business, they're probably scanning some type of QR code, and then they received like a couple hundred reviews that day, and then were so upset that they never published. And then they had the posting was blocked on their profile. But what the funny thing about that one is it was quickly removed. It only lasted like 5 days with that label, but the reviews still weren't posting. So the block was still there. It's gone now. The review block typically lasts 30 days. And, but it's always the same thing. Like you have like a really unusually high volume of reviews. It's unusual patterns. And then Google will, and then if you're using QR codes in there, you can tell that the reviews are left inside the business, I believe, you're more likely to get that label slapped on. Because even now, Google has review policies. And I don't know if you've noticed this, but they have something called rating manipulation. And it specifically says that content exhibiting unusual volumes or patterns of review contributions that are indicative of efforts to manipulate a place's rating. So obviously, if you're getting a huge number of reviews, you're trying to manipulate your rating. And so if you do that now, Google's going to put you in review jail.
So Ben Fisher, when I spoke to him on our podcast a couple months ago, he mentioned this silent review block that basically means a business can't get new reviews. Like no matter what they do or who they ask, nothing sticks, but there's no label. Nothing shows up anywhere. So it's a little different than the 30-day like traditional review jail where Google actually issues a warning. Have you run into this at all?
Yeah. So like I mentioned in the forum with the roofer, he's not in review jail. And I've had clients that are like, our reviews aren't posting. So I don't know why Google does this, because it's like so confusing. There's so many different scenarios. Like it's like reviews publish and then they're gone and then they come back. And then there's so many different scenarios. But I think it's like, it all comes down to the same thing. There's unusual patterns going on that Google's detecting. And so they might not slap on that, review jail block because they can't for 100% say that there's some type of review manipulation, like confidently. But at the end of the day, like if you're a roofer and you're getting 3 to 4 reviews a day, that's very unusual for your category. And then it might be unusual, like you've been in business for a year and like you were getting a review a month, and then 3 months go by, you get no review. And then all of a sudden you can't, you think you can just get 3 to 4 reviews every single day. No, so I had a client tell me that they wanted their QR code and that, can I send them the QR code? And I said, well, what are you guys going to do? And they were like, well, we're going to have our employees ask for reviews and we're going to try to get 3 reviews a day. So think about that. 3 reviews a day. And this is a restaurant. So it's not like highly unusual to get that type of volume. But if you think about it, that's 90 reviews more than you got the previous month, right? From organically. So you're going to trigger something. And then if you can't sustain it, and so all of a sudden you did it for a month, you did it for 2 months. I've seen it where reviews will go up for 3 months and then boom, all the reviews get deleted and then you're slapped on with the review manipulation. So you have to be very careful. You have to make sure that everything looks organic and natural. Like it has to, like if people are engaging with your Google business profile in high volumes and then you're getting reviews, maybe that's not going to be as big of a flag. But if you're a roofer that's not getting a ton of clicks on your Google business profile and all of a sudden you're getting 3 to 4 reviews a day, that's a flag. So there's multiple scenarios and things that Google's looking at, and like, it's hard to pinpoint everything, but at the end of the day, it's based on patterns.
Sure. I'll tell you one pattern that appears to be working. We did actually a video on this one business. So that's a personal injury lawyer, and they do this really unique thing where they have kind of festivals. You know how like cities, small towns, whatever, will have like little, they're like events where you have like a bunch of vendors and maybe things going on, like bounce houses and things like that at the park. So there's this like one event in this town that they have a booth at, and at their booth, they give away free bicycle helmets for kids. So they're promoting bicycle safety basically because they're personal injury lawyers and they deal with those types of injury cases. So they get a spike of around 200 reviews all in the same day. And I've been tracking them for a while. So they have this happen like maybe once or twice a year, and they'll get this massive spike. So 200 at once, all the reviews stick. It's actually insane. A lot of them have photos. A lot of them will have photos of kids wearing the helmets. They'll be like, thank you for the helmet. Like that doesn't have anything to do with law. And it's funny because I remember asking Google about this, and Google's kind of like, yeah, you shouldn't do that. But of course, like they don't remove any of the reviews. Like they're all still there. So it's like, well, do you even want to listen to Google if there's no enforcement?
Yeah, it's so infuriating.
But my point being that like they've obviously figured out like maybe it's the presence of the photo as well. Or the fact that the person is on site, but it's not their office. I don't know if that like matters, but because it's like in a park, right? It's not actually at their law firm address, but they all stick. So whatever pattern that they've got there doesn't seem to be affected by.
Well, maybe they're all like connected to different cell towers, and so like maybe that's the thing. I don't really know, but
it's interesting. Yeah,
it's ironic because like it puts us in a weird situation too. Because when I'm talking to a client. And they're like, yeah, but these are like real reviews and this and that. And they're like, but I've done this before and this never happened. Or we did it at this location and, so they're like, can't you do something about it? And I'm like, I mean, I'll try. I'll submit the form. But I know that, historically submitting the form hasn't done anything for any of my other clients. So it's one of those things that's frustrating, for me, because I don't know, it's like something like the client just almost doesn't believe it, because for so many years, people were using QR codes and asking for reviews at the register. And then now it's becoming more of a thing, but it's obviously not super consistent. And I'm going to give you a really good example of what I've been noticing. Google updated their policy about employees asking for reviews. And so it actually says merchants requesting that staff solicit reviews that include specific content, including content that identifies a staff member.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was like super interesting, because I have lots of restaurants that do this. And like, I'll come in and I'll notice like this, there are like 60 reviews from the weekend, and they all say staff names, different, like 3 or 4 different staff names. It's like really annoying. So this is what happened.
I saw that. Google released that. Are they enforcing it though?
So this is what I'm noticing. For smaller businesses, service area businesses, when the staff name is there, it's like removed. But then for some of my restaurant clients, it's not. And I think it's because the depth of the review, because they're not just mentioning the staffer, they're saying how great the food was. And they celebrated a birthday, and then they might have tagged an attribute or a menu item or and added a photo. So the content and the depth of that review maybe is like, Google's like, no, we're not going to remove this, even though it says the staff name. But I do notice a trend where I'm noticing, like, because we track deleted reviews in our app, and I'm like, why did Google remove this review? And the only thing I can correlate it to is having a staff name in there. And I'm talking about for a restoration company.
So I actually know some very largely successful home service companies that do this and preach this, because it's one way that they can incentivize their staff to do it. Because if let's say, Claudia, you work for me, and I'm like, hey, go get a whole bunch of reviews for Sterling Sky. Well, the reason why I know they're from you is because they mentioned Claudia in them. So then I give you a bonus as your boss or whatever. So this is what a lot of companies do. And we actually recommend it, because I'm like, there's nothing wrong with incentivizing your employees, incentivize your customers. Yeah, don't do that. But up until now, there was no like bad part of doing that. So this is really, if Google's actually enforcing this, I think this could be huge, because I'm just thinking about how many businesses.
This is pretty new.
I noticed
I've never seen them say this.
Yeah, they added this I think early 2026, right? So I saw the Help Center article got updated, and then literally I sent a message to Colin and was like, do you think Google's going to enforce this? And I was like, how could they enforce this? But that's interesting that you're seeing that they are. And is the enforcement part of it new, or have you been seeing it for a while?
No, I feel like I've just started noticing it. But to be fair, after I read that, I started like kind of investigating it a little bit more. And I did notice like why did this review get removed? Like there's no reason, like all it said was, someone's name was great, and then it was deleted. So I'm like, well, maybe. I don't know for sure, but it's interesting.
So assuming that a business is already following all of Google's policies, is there any other things that we haven't already mentioned that they should ensure they're doing or not doing to kind of prevent themselves from getting suspended or losing reviews?
I think they should just be like extremely aware of the trends. If all of a sudden, asking for reviews is going to become a big part of the culture, fine, do that, but you have to stay consistent and try to be careful. Like, I think investing in a review solicitation, like SaaS platform is the easiest way to go, but obviously you want to keep it like super organic. So somebody like places a carryout order, like that touch point is important, because I have some clients that, like, we don't have open API with open tables. So, but we do with the carryout. So yes, we ask for reviews organically throughout the month, but then there's that time where we import a reservation list. But I think it's just making that extra step of maybe asking only for like 100 a day and not like trying to solicit 1,000 in one day. So be a little bit more organic about it. And, making sure like you're staying within industry norms and maybe like building up like gradually. I don't know if that's something, or just you have to be able to go through the pain point of losing the reviews to get to the point where Google can trust you again and say like, okay, maybe this is the new normal. And who knows, maybe older reviews will get published. I've seen it in the forum where they're like, these reviews were deleted and now they came back. Like, I don't know how that happens.
The things we'll never know.
Right.
Have you noticed any patterns as far as when you're soliciting reviews, what's likely to be more successful? Text messaging, for example, versus email. Is there a preferred format?
Well, the link in the text message and the email could be the same.
Sure.
So it's I would say it's just the link itself. So like we discussed earlier, do it as a branded search and not like the link that Google provides you to share. I would avoid that at all. I would avoid that in the QR codes because it's like, I don't know, there's something about that they're tracing or something built into the algorithm that they're looking at.
And then when you guys send out a review request, are you sending an email and a text like at the same time or one or the other?
For some verticals like restaurants, you could definitely get away with it. Some people like don't want to be too overbearing. So they might only do email or some might just do text only. It just really depends on the client. But for the most part, I would say like 75%, we do text and email, and then we send a follow-up email 2 days later.
Okay. So you don't really have any like hard stance on which one's better, like between text and email.
Text converts way better than email but I just think email can end up in like a spam folder, and that could be part of the problem.
Yeah. And also, I also think email is one of those things that like professionally I'm in front of all day long, but it's not like certain age groups don't even really use email, right? So
right. I mean, I'm way better with email than I am with text. Like if I'll leave it in my inbox, and I'm that inbox out girl. So my inbox is clean. And so like, if I want to leave somebody a review, I will actually leave that like in my inbox and make sure that I go back to it later and take care of it. Or a text, I might just forget about it.
So speaking of text messages, one of the things that Google has rolled out recently is these automated calls. And we see this label on Google. I think this is US only right now. But there's a label that talks about how Google can check prices for you, and they will send you an automated call and they'll ask the business, what are your prices? And then they curate it all and they email the person. Have you had any experience with this feature? Any businesses that you work with actually get results from it?
So for the calls on service area business, like service companies, no, but I've actually used the feature for booking reservations for a restaurant, and it worked seamlessly. Like I was actually surprised that this restaurant picked up because they do get probably 1,500 calls a month, and it's not the way that they like to take reservations. But for some reason, it was enabled for a client. And so I was like intrigued and I tested it out, and they actually successfully booked my reservation and I had no issues. So I could see it as something that's going to definitely be prominent in the next upcoming years. I think like the whole agentic flow and the bookings is definitely going to be a priority. And I think businesses are going to have to opt in if they're going to want to show up. It's going to be like the new ranking factor.
Yeah, what I kind of noticed with some of these features is that they work. They do exactly what they're meant to do, but the adoption rate is just ridiculous. Like nobody uses it. So I kind of saw this with booking links, with the chat feature. Both of those, I was like, they're great features. Actually, chat, I'm really kind of surprised didn't take off. But from all the businesses that we work with, I do not see the number of chats. Like it's either zero or practically non-existent. Have you seen either of those features result in, way more leads for a business?
Well, I see exactly what you see. There's two reasons for it. One, spam. So if you get 4 messages, 3 out of the 4 are like spam messages, which is super frustrating for the business to see. And then, again, like it's just another channel to communicate through. So like if you're used to getting calls or having a call center, and then all of a sudden, like you have to train your staff to check this new platform for like text messages that you normally weren't. And then who do you assign it to? Which employee? Right. So there's certain verticals where it just doesn't make any sense. Like for a restaurant, for example, unless they have a dedicated staff member that's going to like constantly like have their number there and like, or WhatsApp, and then be checking it. And, they might be off one day. And then what happens if you don't respond? I know it seems complicated. I tried to have one of my restaurant clients like test it out because I was like, it could be great. It could help you like boost in rankings and engagement, and like it can help you overall. Let's test it out. But they were just way too busy, and at the end of the day, like they just prefer people to go and book on Open Table. Like they don't want to get calls. And then even if they do like large parties and things like that, because they don't allow for bookings of large parties online, so that's where most of their calls are. It's like they take a voicemail and then somebody's calling them back.
Yeah, it's interesting to see if like Google actually keeps up with some of these features, because anytime they don't get wide adoption, they usually end up canning it, right? So to be determined on which ones of these actually stick around and which ones don't.
But they create some of these features, but they don't enhance them. Like they don't make them better. They don't take the feedback. And then it's like, then they just die. It's like they did it with posts, but then finally they like rebuilt the whole post structure, right? So they're like, well, nobody used posts, or, nobody's engaging. Well, it's because you hide the post. Like, how can people engage?
Yeah, I know. I'm with you. I'm not really one that deals with Google Posts very much. We stopped doing Google Posts for our clients years ago. I couldn't measure any ROI from it. That being said, I don't deal with restaurants. So I do think like if you were in an industry like a restaurant, that posting things like your specials or your weekly things, like, maybe you've got a specific thing for Easter or for Thanksgiving or whatever, like I could see that actually getting engagement. Have you seen that doing Google Posts is actually worth it? Like worth the effort?
Yeah. So I had a client, I started posting like birthday packages. And so as people were driving to the location, it was like one of those trampoline jumping places that, people were driving to the location, they were getting to the register and they're like, I saw your birthday package, I want to buy it. And so in one day, he sold 3 birthday packages. He called me up ecstatic. Like, what did you do? Like, and I was like, yeah. And he's like, post these all the time for me. And like, this is great. And he was so happy because he sold 3 birthday packages. So yeah,
awesome.
I mean, it will work in some verticals. And like, I like to do it for like happy hour. Cause if you're scrolling and then all of a sudden, like, okay, there's a happy hour and there's like, something on like special, like, and somebody might be more inclined to visit you. I definitely like, I train my team on like Google Posts are like bottom of the funnel, right? Like this is not, we're not here to get likes. We're here to convert. And so if somebody's landing on your Google business profile and you have some type of like event or something that you want to promote, that's what you should be doing. But like, I can't stand when my clients have like their like SaaS channels integrated and then they just post everything from social onto Google. That's definitely the wrong approach. Like you have to be like, and it's not about the quantity. It's like post once a month, it just post something relevant.
Right. I think the 2 categories I see posts the most in that are the most useless is personal lures. They have no specials. Like there's no coupons. There's nothing that they have to post about this. I've seen it just be a total waste of time. Realtors are another one. Realtors seem to always think like, oh, I need to post my house listings and whatever. So they just clutter up their Google Posts with their house listings. I've never seen it result in anything. Like I don't know. It takes time and I can't measure any ROI from those ones, but I definitely think in retail, it's a totally different story. And I certainly would do it in that instance, like what you're describing.
I mean, until we actually see AI mention a post in like the summary, then maybe it'll like relive, but
maybe,
you're right.
Yeah.
There's
Google
like
definitely
certain verticals. Yeah, for sure.
I can absolutely, if I worked with restaurants, we don't work with restaurants, but like if we did 100%, I would suggest doing them. One of the things that we have noticed as a trend is that Google is substituting a lot of AI generated content onto the Google business profile. So we've seen, like AI generated descriptions, there's an AI generated little summaries, and that kind of trend seems to be increasing. And if Google is pulling all this information from somewhere else, do you think they are like moving in a direction where it actually reduces the amount of control a business owner has on what shows up in the search results that they actually filled in on their profile?
Yeah, so most definitely, because what happens is you have this kind of ghost sentiment. So like you have these reviews that are older that mention certain things that might not be the truth of your business in its current environment. So it's definitely more of a like an issue for businesses that they should be paying attention to. So like I've had 3 or 4 businesses that I had to help remove editorial summaries because the editorial summary on your business is taking the lifetime of reviews. So like 6 years ago, they offered beer. 6 years ago, they used to paint. They don't do that anymore. And then the business is emailing me saying like, why does it say that we paint? We don't paint. And then if I look back at the reviews, it says like, they painted. And it's like 1 or 2 reviews. So it's quite, like, it's like, I don't know how AI is like pulling this summary, but they are. And the only way to get it removed is through support and then escalation, and then it's deleted. So I don't know if you'll ever get an editorial summary back.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So they don't just like edit the text, they just delete the feature if it's wrong. And can you also break down what an editorial summary is? Because I'm not sure everybody knows what that term means.
So the editorial summary is usually going to be below your business name or right above the business name. And it's just like 1 sentence or 2 sentences at the most. And it just gives like a very big, like brief overview of your business. And so Google used to handwrite these, and they had a team that would go and write them, and not everybody gets them. But now they're using AI, and it's like you're starting to notice them a lot more. And so it's definitely looking at a lifetime of reviews. So that's the risk there. So then you have review summaries, which you have to understand the review summary is going to take the last year. It's not a lifetime of reviews. It's just the last year, and it refreshes weekly. So it's just, and then that's basically, it tends to be like more positive, more of a positive sentiment. And in the past, I noticed that anybody who had like 3.5 stars or lower was not getting a review summary. I think, that may have changed. I got to check that again. But review summaries are almost always going to stay a little bit more neutral and positive. And then you have the know before you go, which is also pulled from reviews, but it also could be pulling from other areas like your website, third-party directories, and they're highlighting reviews and they can say something. They almost always say something negative. So it could be something positive, and then that's something like a little bit neutral, or something like heads up, customers say that there are long lines, or, they don't serve something, like they don't serve liquor at the bar. So that's where that ghost sentiment kind of comes into play, where you have bad customer service, and then it gets played out in what to know, like know before you go. And you have to start like getting an influx of more positive reviews to kind of like flood that out.
Who do you recommend to follow when it comes to small business local SEO services? What kind of names would you suggest people pay attention to in the industry?
It might not be like so local, but I think they're worth following because you can just learn a lot and apply it into like local SEO. But I really like Kevin Indig and Brittany Muller. I think they just like provide like such useful AI content, and their research and their case studies. Like, you'll learn a lot from them. And I also really like Matt McGee. His newsletter is like super informative. He puts like his heart into it, and he like always puts like, I don't know, the information he includes is like, you're always going to learn something from him. So I think he's another good one to watch. And then as far as like social media and like storytelling content, which I think is important in local SEO, and just making sure you're staying up to date with like social media. I like to follow Sean Walchef. He's in the restaurant industry, and he's all about like storytelling and telling your story, and don't overthink it, and just, shoot, and nobody's watching, and don't like get too over wrapped up in, being embarrassed. And I try to preach that same thing to even like some of my service area clients. Like, when you get to a job, show the job, like take a recording, and you don't have to necessarily edit it. Like, you could still upload that to your Google business profile, because at the end of the day, AI is reading into that video. They can understand exactly the service you're providing. So just getting the content, because everything is about content now. It's all content. It's not about the keyword in the review anymore. It's about the visual.
Those are good suggestions. We had a question from our audience that I wanted to ask you. So I'll read what they said. I manage Google business profiles for 2 locations that bring in a high volume of Google reviews every week, 25 to 40. They've been consistently bringing in this many reviews for a long time. From time to time, each location will have pauses or delays in Google reviews. Sometimes anywhere from a week to 5 weeks will go by and 0 reviews are published to the business profile. And we know they're receiving reviews during these times. Eventually, the reviews are published, sometimes coming through in batches a week at a time. Google has never told us why this is happening. When I've reported it, they gave me the same answer, which is nothing useful.
Yeah, I've never seen or heard of this situation, but I would say, like, if they are publishing, you're in really good shape.
Right.
And my guess is that there's definitely some type of human intervention that, like, you're being flagged, because maybe it's not industry norm to get that many reviews, like we mentioned before. So you're getting queued up, and then people are looking at it and saying, okay, there's some type of engagement. Obviously, you're putting in the right signals, and then publishing the reviews. Or maybe they're just looking and saying, like, they've been consistently getting reviews, so we can go ahead and publish them. But the algorithm is most likely holding it up. And then my guess would be a human is taking a second look.
That's a really good theory. When it comes to removing negative reviews, this is a very popular question. What actually works and what is a complete waste of time?
So complete waste of time, a negative review with no content, you're never going to get removed. Just forget about it. And I know it's so heartbreaking, but it's the truth. Unless, it came from a different country or like maybe, yes, you could flag it and it could fall off. But if you're like constantly trying to go after it, just give up. It's not getting removed. As far as like having multiple accounts flag a negative review works because like I'll see clear violations. For example, a client had emailed me and there was 3 reviews left, all from similar names. So like the first name was spelled a little bit differently, but it was like the same last name, but it was the same name. She left a review because she was really upset because they ruined her birthday party. And she left 3 negative reviews from 3 different accounts. I flagged them. They didn't fall off. But then I had other people flag them. So like maybe 2 or 3 more people flagged it. And then I also had it escalated in the forum too at the same time because I just do it all at the same time. And it was removed. So if you do see a clear violation, like the same names, things like that, I say put forth the effort to do the flagging, have multiple people flag it. And then if it still doesn't get removed, go into the forum, try to have a product expert remove the review, but be very clear. Provide like your evidence because we're not there to like write the explanation for you. Like give your proof, write your explanation, provide the links, and then somebody is more likely to escalate the review for you.
Yeah, it's funny. I always tell business owners they freak out when they get a high volume of negative reviews at a time. And I'm like, actually, it's a good thing. Google's more likely to remove them if there's a high volume because they look fake. So Don't panic if you're one of those businesses and you get like 12 negative reviews in a row. You're actually way more likely to get somewhere with those than you would if you got a single 1-star review.
100%.
So kind of silver lining there. All right. I'm going to move away from reviews slightly here. Let's talk about Google Posts, which we talked about briefly. But what causes Google to put a block on posting? I get these threads all the time in the business profile community, and people will be like, Google has put a block. I can't do Google Posts. What do you see usually as the cause for that?
A glitch most of the time, like for real, like maybe just a glitch. Or it could be the user. So like a bad user on the profile is another reason I've seen. But like let's just say your post gets removed or it's not publishing. The other day I had a client say that they published a video and it wasn't posting. It's because of the music in the background. It was copyrighted. So that's another thing you have to think about. If you put a phone number inside in the image or you're not supposed to do that, that's a violation. It'll get removed. So there's like the obvious violations, but if you're completely blocked and you just can't publish anything, I think it's more of like a user related issue or it's like a bug.
Got it. Okay. So either way, contact support, see where you get, but you might actually get somewhere. Yeah. This is kind of a loaded question, but if you were starting a brand new local business today and you only had 5 hours a week for marketing, how would you allocate your time for this to get the maximum ROI?
So first, make sure the foundation is there, like your Google business profile and then your main citations. So make sure you're listed on Yelp. I always love to recommend BBB. It's just especially for service area businesses or any service-based company with a storefront. Anything industry relevant, you're going to want to make sure you're there. Freshen it up, put good photos, try to get a review or 2 across, review diversification. Make sure you focus on that strategy. claim your like handles, Facebook, Instagram, Reddit. Even if you don't have the bandwidth to start posting, I think it's always useful to make sure like your name is claimed and have it there just in, so when you are ready to go full-fledged in your marketing. And then, once that foundation is set up, I would say focus on generating reviews, and then content on your website has become increasingly more important with AI. Like, so be the first main voice, like on your website. Make sure you have like good content. Find somebody that can create your website that you can maintain yourself, and maybe add an FAQ as needed so that you can get the stuff on your website that you want. And then I would focus on like video content and photos. And you don't have to hire somebody to do that. Like, just do it yourself. And like those 5 hours, like if you focused on video and photo content and posting that across, it's gonna help you in a major way.
Now, talking about content, this is one of those things where I don't think the average business owner really understands what type of content they need. So I think I have strong opinions on this, but I'm curious on what you've seen. What types of content are currently working for businesses that you would suggest focusing on? And then is there any that you're kind of seeing that are dying off?
I mean, it's kind of a loaded question because it's very like vertical driven. So so I think there's some verticals that you're not really publishing content for your audience. You're more publishing it for AI now. But then I also think that like if you're in like the restaurant category, obviously like you have to be on TikTok, and you want to have, because Google might be the like last funnel for you, right? Nobody's finding, maybe they are finding you on Google, but like a lot of brand awareness is done on social media. So having content there, and just, you have to learn to be a storyteller. So there's certain industries where you have to just really become a storyteller and be relatable. But then there's like, I don't know, like if you're a painter, like show before and after photos, take a video of before, and then, have the end of the video show the like end result, and then put that on your Google business profile, because you're just going to get engagement, and Google likes to see those engagements, and you might actually convert that way. And then like for content, like I tell people, like, why not take a video of yourself, introduce yourself, give a little background, tell people that you're a family-owned business. You could publish that video on your Google business profile. Somebody's going to be more likely to like kind of listen in on what you have to say. Because if you don't have a ton of context and content, people are just going to kind of like slide by you and scroll past you. But if they see something and they see somebody talking, they might be more inclined to stop and listen, and then that might convert. So you just need something to convert. You need to be relatable, and every industry is a little different.
Now, you mentioned TikTok. Would you say that social media is becoming more crucial for businesses, that they have to have a social media presence in order to do well on Google? And do you see it as like a direct ranking factor?
Most definitely. I think that, like, I don't even like working with brands that have like no content, like in certain industries, right? Like, because I kind of know like there's only so much I can do to help you, right? If you're not going to like participate and provide, good photos and content, then you're only going to go so far. So, like med spas, like that's a good example. Like they need to like have like video content, and like they don't need to have a ton of followers. And I think investing in like micro influencers is huge, right? So just getting like a mention from a micro influencer saying like they got lip injections with you, it's going to go a long way. And that does help with like brand awareness. And then, people might search your business, and then so they recognize you on TikTok or some other social platform, and then they go to Google and search your brand to learn a little bit more about you and read your reviews.
Now, I'll throw an incredibly boring industry at you as an example. What would you do if you were, let's say, an insurance agent?
Yeah, those suck.
Like, this is where I'm like, there are some industries where I'm like, what do you do for content on social media? Because it's so boring. Even in finance, I think you can go after, the money aspect. That's interesting to people. But insurance is one of those like incredibly boring industries that it's definitely challenging to come up with a content plan for.
It is, but I think if you did like 60-second clips educating people, like, here's why you need insurance, like this is what happened with a client of mine, but they had insurance, like, they can be more, they would have to provide a little bit more video content. But it's just like, it's so hard to get people to become storytellers.
Yep.
Especially like if they're like older generations and they're just like not used to it, or they're not used to social media. It's really hard. Like, I'll give you the best example. Like, I have had a couple people call me, like, they're financial advisors, and they're like wildly successful, and they have 0 Google reviews. Right? They're like, well, I don't care. I don't really need Google. I get referrals, but I'm getting near retirement, and I want to pass down, my business to my son, or the next generation. And I'm like, well, like, look what you did for your son. Like, you left him, you left him a legacy, but it's your legacy. People trust you. And so now he has to go and start over with this Google business profile, where you could have been maintaining and like giving him so much more of an asset if you just focused in on getting Google reviews, even if you knew they weren't going to convert, right? It's such little effort, but just over the years, getting those reviews and putting forth that effort, you would have left such a bigger legacy to your next generation that you pass down that business to. But now it's like starting over for them.
So that makes me think, what was a recent local SEO problem that you were able to solve? And tell us how you did it.
Let's see. So one easy one was just like changing the website landing page. So like the service area page. So guy calls me up in a panic. He's like, I'm not getting calls. I am not happy, blah, blah, blah. So the page was going to like the domain name /city. So all I did was change it to the service area page in the city name, and immediately started generating calls. So that helps.
So what was it before? So it was like plumberdenver.com/Denver, like, or that's a terrible example.
So like plumber.com/Denver.
Okay.
And then it was changed to plumber.com/waterleak/Denver. So just adding that keyword for the service into the domain, like, all of a sudden generated calls for him. So, like, he obviously was a ranking factor for him.
For sure.
In his vertical. So it works. Like, simple things really work well.
Yes.
Another really like simple thing, but it's like so highly overlooked. I was able, like, I did a case study on why I couldn't get this restaurant to rank for halal restaurant, like for like halal searches. Like, their interactions are crazy. Like, I'm talking about like 120 interactions on average. And they have tons of reviews that mention halal, that I have it in the business category. It's mentioned on the website. I was like, why are they not ranking for halal restaurant? Well, the primary category is steakhouse. And I've learned that like your primary category is going to dictate a lot of like broader searches. Yep. So like if I switch to halal restaurant, obviously they're immediately going to rank, but I don't want them to be a primary category for halal restaurant. They're a steakhouse. But then if I switched it to another restaurant related category, what was interesting about that one is it's a little technical, but if you look at the actual like category, it's steak_house. That's how Google has it, and like behind the scenes. But like any other category for restaurant is going to be like the cuisine_restaurant. Yep. So I'm like, is Google just not recognizing steakhouse as a restaurant? Like, it's something as simple as that. So like, you probably see it in the dental industry. Like, if you're an orthodontist as a primary category, you're probably not showing up for dentist related searches.
Correct.
Yeah. So a lot, like, the average person is not going to be able to like pick up on that on their own.
Yeah. I'll tell you one that's really challenging. We work with a lot of HVAC companies, and so they do HVAC, they do electrical, they do plumbing, let's say, for example. And let's say they put plumbing as their primary category. The crappy thing is that means that they will rank worse for electrical searches. And if they put electrical as their primary category, they'll rank worse for plumber searches. That is probably the most challenging scenario to deal with. Have you ever run into any of those, like situations where a business is having a hard time picking?
Yeah. So not specifically for a client, but like, in the forums or just like in different groups that like, people will ask me, and I'm always tell them like, you can't, like, you're just, you pick your primary and then stick with it, because that's where you're going to show up in the local pack, and then focus on, LSA or like ads or social media to get a brand awareness around, but like, you have to like really decide as a brand your most important like keyword ranking that you want to rank for, and then go from there. And I don't really like suggesting multiple Google business profiles for that. Do you?
So again, it's like a depends answer. So I'll tell you one time I did it where I don't actually think the business liked my answer at all, because he wasn't expecting me to tell him this, but it was an immigration lawyer, and they were starting to branch out. I think they were going to start doing personal injury, and they had an immigration domain, and they had their, like, the whole brand of a business was based around immigration. And so they were thinking of going to this generic domain that encompasses like all law, whatever. And then so they could like branch out different types of law. And I was like, I wouldn't do that. I'm like, all you're going to see is that you're going to kill your rankings for immigration, because you have so much relevance. It's in your domain. It's in your business name. Like,
Right.
You are amazing for immigration. You don't want to like ruin that. And if you water it down and make it generic, all you're going to do is rank nowhere for anything. You have to pick a
Right.
specialty. I'm like, this is how Google, unfortunately, designed the local product. Like, they want specialists. They want people that are really good at that thing. So I was like, what you should do if you want to branch into personal injury is start a new practice and a new website. And he did not like that answer, like, because it's way more work and it's going to take longer, right? But at the same time, I really just don't see it working if he was to like keep it all in the same house, the same domain. All that's going to happen is you're just going to have a negative on your primary thing right now. And I don't see the other stuff picking up for a very long time, if ever, if it's not in your business name or it's not in your domain name itself, or Google's just really bad at associating a single brand with a bunch of different entities.
But that's going to change. Like with AI, it's 1000% going to change. Like the ranking factors are all about like the context. And so I tell people like, be careful. Like, if you're going to decide to invest, I'm talking about like a month ago, I was like, I don't know, like with AI coming into play, I don't know if I'd go down that route.
Okay. So we're going to get to AI in 1 second. I have one question for you before you jump into AI, because I do want to talk about this. Google business profiles in general. One of the trends that we are seeing is that they are driving fewer calls than they used to. If you compare to 2 years ago, a business, if their ranking stays the same, they're the same as they were, they're dominating whatever, they will get less calls today than compared to even a year ago or 2 years ago. Is this a pattern you have seen? And if so, what are you seeing replace it? Like, why is this happening? Where are the calls going instead?
Well, yeah. So definitely I've learned a lot from your posts and then just reading about it. And then I do have one brand that I work with that's a restoration company, and they've been hit hard with not generating calls. And so when you reposted that article, it specifically talked about that vertical being hit one of the hardest. So it was like so timely for me, because I had just had a call with the CEO, and he was like, just kind of venting and saying, like they had changed their website. They did a whole new revamp, but he wasn't like particularly happy with his, website development team and the SEO team he had. And I told him, I was like, I don't think you're going to have much more success switching to another marketing company, because this, like, you're not really paying attention to the fact that the whole SERP is changing, right? Like when people search, the local map pack is getting pushed down. Call buttons are no longer there. Like you have to pay attention to these things. So like you have to focus more on LSA or, other things. But at the end of the day, like you're in this weird transition where Google's testing a lot of things, and you're not going to get those calls back. You're not, the map pack is pushed down. AR overviews are taking over. Like, I don't know, like, where are they going? Are they just calling the first person in AI overviews? Are they jumping into AI mode? Or is it just Google guarantee at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a mixture of everything, but the number one that I am seeing for small businesses specifically where it's going is ads. And it's a different answer than, again, depending on the vertical and the industry. Like if you talk to somebody who deals with SaaS or maybe B2B, they might say it's going to AI. I've absolutely seen that trend for Sterling Sky. For my agency, a lot, we're getting a ton of traffic from AI. I'm not seeing that for SMBs. For SMBs, where I'm seeing an increase is ads. So I do think that's intentional on Google's part. I will also include a link to that study that you mentioned, Claudia. So this study that Claudia mentioned was actually really cool. It was sent to me on Reddit by a guy that basically did a study on it was a study that was done on 41 different niches, 15 different cities, and 172 different keywords. And he basically looked to see what the impact was across all of these different industries and found that 4 out of 5 searches in the map pack have no call button, which is wild. I knew it was a lot, but I didn't know it was that much. And I certainly have not done that many searches to get that stat. So he looked at 2,580 results. And out of those, 510 had a call button, which is 19.8%. But that is the trend we are seeing across lots of industries. And I think it broke down which industries are being hit the hardest.
I think it's like really affecting agencies as a whole because, you know, like a lot of things with LSA, you can't really control, you know, like, are you picking up your calls? Like, and like sometimes like the leads are bad and, you know, like specifically in restoration, like mold, you know, it's not a category and like people like might search something and you might not service something mold related and then you're getting that call. So it's a bad lead. And if you mark it as a bad lead, that works against you. If you decline the call and it's being recorded, I mean, there's so many factors that as an agency, you're not going to really know what your customer is doing. And so many things can work against you. I mean, Google's definitely like raising the bar for like those verticals.
Yeah, I keep wondering when we've hit the peak of how often we are going to see local service ads and local pack ads in the search results. So we've been tracking this for about a year now. And it started at 7% of the time Google was showing LSAs last year, like a year. Actually, sorry, not last year. Back in November of 2024, it was 7%. I believe the peak so far is 44% of the time, wow, which is insane. For map pack ads or local pack ads, as I like to call them, that one had some pretty crazy stats as well. Let me see if I can get you the numbers. So the percentage, we were basically tracking a large set of ranking reports that we run on a regular basis. In the fall of 2024, there was less than 1% of the search results on mobile would show an ad in the local pack. It jumped to 21% at the beginning of 2026. And then I believe February's numbers were even larger. February of 2026, the number was 28% of searches basically on mobile were showing a local pack ad in the local pack. Sometimes they are in addition to the 3 that are there. We've seen other cases where they just boot somebody out. So it's like ad, organic. So it's quite disrupting. And then, like you said, the removal of call buttons is also quite disrupting. So,
and you're tracking mobile and desktop?
Just mobile. So we don't actually see that they show up on desktop as much at all. That might change, but where we are prominently seeing them is on mobile results. So I want to talk about AI. You did this post on LinkedIn, and you said that the signals that matter for traditional Google Maps rankings are not the same signals that influence AI mode and Gemini. Now, I want to clarify, because I have them all listed down here, but you're not talking about AI overviews, right? Like you're just talking about searching via Gemini or the AI mode. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, perfect. I want to make sure we do that, distinguish that because the AI overview or the AI powered local packs is also an AI overview. It is a bit different. Now, before we get into the factors, I want to ask you, have you seen any way to track the amount of traffic that is coming from either AI mode or Gemini?
No.
Okay. Well, that's honest. Because there's a lot of companies out there that are claiming that they can, see this somehow. But
unless you're getting like a verbal confirmation from the call and, and then you're like noticing. So I had a marketing agency pay into this AI startup and basically was just generating AI slop, like tons of pages. And they were showing up in ChatGPT and any other, AI search engine. And they were like so happy they were getting leads. And I'm like, it's going to backfire on you.
I want to demonstrate the AI mode here so that we have a visual here. So let me just go ahead and do a search. What would be, you said you deal with
So do this one search that I always do this often, but go into AI mode.
Okay. Well, I want to show both side by side so people can see. So what would be the search?
Like a best sushi restaurant in Michigan.
All right, so this is what people are traditionally used to seeing, right? You've got the local pack at the top, you've got Yelp, you've got a bunch of other, Reddit, of course. We get Reddit for everything. Right. So now I'm going to go into AI mode. I will say that Google has been pushing AI mode like crazy, trying to get people to click on it, and it's right here. I've also seen sometimes where if I search in AI mode and then I go back to regular Google, it tries to take me back to AI mode. Like they are really trying to push this. So I think out of anything, this is likely to be the most disruptive possibly in the local SEO space if Google pushes a button and makes this the default. Okay, so we've got on the left our traditional searches. On the right, we've got AI mode.
So it was SOZAI. Is it that? Did we see it up there? Sozozi? Yeah.
They're closed?
On this one, it showed permanently closed. Posting is currently turned off. They might have sold it. I swear the other day I looked at it and...
oh my God.
Yeah, so,
no.
Okay.
Okay, sorry.
So definitely openness is not a ranking factor.
Oh my God. Okay, so to be clear, there's nothing even on here that says they're closed. Even when you go to this view.
Usually the what to know will show up and say it's closed.
Oh my God.
So, okay, I'm surprised it's not showing up for you. The the AI overview, like what to know.
So basically AI mode is showing a business that is actually permanently closed, but you wouldn't even know clicking on it because it doesn't actually show me that they're closed in any way, shape, or form. Now, of course, this business is invisible over here. I don't even know if you'd be able to find this business with the traditional search results because they're pretty good at filtering out businesses based on opening hours. So I don't see Sozai restaurant anywhere over here.
You see the business description because in the business description it told me why they closed down. Like the business owner moved to another country.
It says it's permanently closed. If that is wrong, please suggest an edit. I don't see a description anywhere, but maybe if I search it on Google.
In AI mode, if you scroll down, usually it shows up, but no, maybe not.
So wild. And like posting turns off, it's closed. Wild. And this is the number one thing that AI mode is surfacing for what is the best sushi restaurant in Michigan. Again, your results may vary depending on your search because that's the other frustrating thing with AI is that it is very hard to reproduce the same thing. I've found that generally speaking, if you and I were to do like the same search, we would see different things. But if we did enough of it over a period of time, we'd be likely to see a lot of the same ones over and over.
Yeah.
The analogy I always use for describing how AI works is it's kind of like rolling a dice, right? You can't determine that you are going to see the same result every time, but the odds are what they are, right? 1 in 6 times you're supposed to get a 1. That doesn't mean you will get a 1 in 6 times, right? So I think visibility on AI is all about probability, which is very different than what we are used to with the search results being all deterministic, where you search this, you get this based on this logic and this algorithm. And AI is like, no, roll a die, see what you get. And so
I agree with that, but I also in local, I think I disagree a little bit. I think for the most part, like every single time over the past 6 months that I've searched this same query, my client shows up every time.
For you?
Well, yeah, because maybe it's personalized, but I do try different workspaces, but I do think about that. Like, oh, is it because I'm clicking on it or I'm engaging? But but I think more or less the context is there. So
yes,
they have the H1 header that says that they're the best in Michigan. They have on the contact us page, they have stuff in there. They're on a Reddit thread that mentions like best sushi in the area, and they're listed by a couple people and with a few upvotes on it. But here's like what I really noticed, like a traditional local map pack. If you were to search sushi, if that's not your primary category, you would never show up. But in AI mode, it's showing you like a Japanese restaurant or like, other related categories. But I think the photos and the mentions of sushi played a bigger role than the actual primary category or the business name. So I don't really think that that's like a big factor. I think having the context is going to be the most important thing for you to show up in AI mode. So like photos, videos, reviews, third-party mentions, micro influencers mentioning you as being the best, just anything like that. The AI is going to prioritize more than the structured data.
Yeah. So let's talk about your posts. I'm going to go down these in order. Opening hours, huge factor for local pack rankings, not as much, if at all, a priority for AI mode, correct?
Correct. Like you could show up if you're closed, you could show up if you're permanently closed.
Yeah, and I've seen this as well. So for sure, it is not the same. So that hack, unfortunately, might go away. If, again, we're speculating here, but if Google starts pushing AI mode more, and that's a big if. As of right now, we're not even sure how much traffic it's sending. So it's a big if, but they're trying.
But don't forget, like we know that like traditional SEO, like Kevin Indig always does like case studies, like ChatGPT might prioritize like your placement on the first page. So that might be a factor in ChatGPT, but not so much so in AI mode. So it's still all relevant.
Mm-hmm. Keywords in the business name you mentioned are not as much of a priority. I think that's a big plus, but again, going to be bad for some businesses that are getting a huge boost for that. The aligned primary category, this could be the solution to that plumber example I had earlier, right? Like if you're an HVAC company that does plumbing, electrical, and HVAC, and you currently rank crappy for whatever one's not your primary category, this could be helpful. I will add in one other use case I have seen, and I haven't seen it like, again, a ton, so this is a use case, but there was a client of mine who is not in Toronto, but he services Toronto, and he's in a city in the suburb, and he actually ranks really well in AI mode for Toronto queries, just fine. And he doesn't actually have an office in Toronto. So it's like, ooh, this could be the solution for service area businesses that is one of the challenges that we've run into over the years where it's like, oh, I'm right outside the city I service. Well, maybe AI doesn't care as much as the map pack does. So that could be good.
Yeah, for sure. And you don't need multiple like virtual offices. Like you can just list them on the top of your homepage, and AI is going to know that you have you service those and you have virtual offices there, and you're all set.
Yeah. The other thing you mentioned is reviews. So are they the same priority? Because reviews matter a lot for local pack rankings. Are they basically the same on both?
Yeah, for sure. And maybe even more so.
Interesting. You said H1 headers on the website is more important for AI. I mean, I find it's important across the board.
Yeah, I mean, it is important across the board. So you could say it's like equal weight.
Yeah. Listicles, best X and Y. So we're talking like best restaurants in Michigan list, best chiropractors in Ann Arbor, that kind of thing. Third-party listicles we're talking, right? Not on your own website.
Yes.
Okay.
So like
these
the
are
Yelp listicles. Yes.
Yeah. Honestly, these are way too powerful for AI. It's like,
I think it'll change over time, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah, I do. Because we are winning like crazy with these, like factoring it AI only. Like this is not a big mover for organic SEO. It definitely also impacts local pack rankings, not at the same scale as AI. Like we can move businesses in AI pretty fast with these types of lists, or like, just sending out a press release. It's ridiculous. It shouldn't be that easy. It's very easy right now. And I do agree that it's not going to be that easy maybe a year from now.
Yes.
But great right now. Third-party reviews are more important for AI mode.
Yeah. So getting a recommendation off of like whether it's Reddit, a micro influencer, or like a Yelp review, I think they all kind of carry the same weight. I'm not convinced that like one is more important than the other. I think just having that diversification and, the reinforcement that like whatever the person's searching and it's reinforced through a third party directory is going to just be like, it's going to align and work in your favor.
Now you specifically mentioned Reddit, which is interesting. You said Reddit is a high priority. Are you seeing that Reddit matters a lot more for AI mode than it would for like traditional Google local pack?
For local pack, yes. For sure.
Okay. Reddit is everywhere. I mean, you can't get rid of it. I don't think it's dying anytime soon either. I think the brand is pretty strong. So I have no hunch that it's going anywhere.
Google invested in it, and they train their models on it. So it's definitely not going anywhere.
Okay. And then there's two other on here that I wanted to touch on. Business descriptions. Are you talking about like the description that the business owner fills out on the business profile?
Yes.
You are actually seeing Google use that more in the AI mode?
Whether it's in your Yelp business description, like if you mention like offering, like a certain offering, it'll get like reinforced in AI, whether it's on Yelp, whether it's on your website, or whether it's now. Before, I never used to see Google looking at the attributes and business description in your Google business profile. They always prioritized third-party directories, but that's changing now. I did a post recently that talks about how your attributes in everything is now being trained by the LLM and it's being mentioned.
Interesting. Any particular sites? I've only seen Yelp so far, which is irritating as all get out because I just can't stand Yelp. But I'm seeing Yelp quoted a lot in AI overviews as like a place where Google is grabbing details, like especially a description for a business. Are there any particular sites that you're seeing more so than others?
It's funny, like when I'm in AI mode, you can see just like, for example, like the best example I can give is when you're searching like anything halal. So there's this like blogger, like it's like this blogger would never be surfaced ever in history, right? That and it's a post from like years ago, but it's getting cited in AI mode just because of the like URL has like halal and it might mention like the best halal restaurants to eat in the area. And so now all of a sudden it's like prominent. So like things that have zero domain authority are going to be cited. And so like domain authority is like definitely not a thing.
Is that wild if this brings back like food blogging? Because I got to tell you, I've talked to so many who got just like annihilated with the helpful content update. And like for them to make a resurgence with AI would be really ironic. Like that's just, I don't know, full circle.
I definitely think we're going to see that. Like the models or like whoever's behind the scenes, like they like that original content. Like that's what they're looking for. So we're definitely going to see more of that.
That'll be interesting to watch for sure. All right. I want to talk about this last thing here, which is a recent post that you put out talking about ranking and talking about how your map pin influences ranking. And it's kind of technical and kind of complicated. So I want you to try and dumb it down for people watching or listening. Let's talk about this article. It talks about ranking and service area businesses. Give me an overview of what you kind of have discovered with this.
Okay, so I'm noticing a lot more than usual in the last month or two. Map pin placements are like all over the place. So you're verifying, and then your map pin is at like never updated. So you changed your address and you verified, but your map pin still ended up in the old spot. Or just historically, Darren Shaw, you always talk about how, if you're an SAB, your rankings drop, what is the problem with hiding your address? So I mean, I've been researching this for like over a year and I constantly go back and forth with it, but I finally published something that I felt confident enough to publish. And so, yes, it is technical. So there's multiple things that is going on. And like one that we know about and that you've documented is if you move and you're an SAB and you hide your address almost always will revert to the address that you created your Google business profile in. So if you're a service-based company that's servicing like, a metropolitan area and you only moved a mile away, it's probably not going to be a big deal that your PIN moved to your old address. But if you're running ranking reports in this certain mile radius, you're obviously going to see like bad rankings because you're not placed in the right vicinity. So, that's something to think about. Plus, like a lot of these ranking systems, they're placing your map pin in the centroid of your service area. And so if you're running your ranking report based on the centroid of your service area, that's also going to really affect how you're ranking, right? You have to really know where your map pin placement is to understand if you're ranking well for those keywords. So that's another thing to think about. I moved and I updated my address and I was showing my address. I was verified and everything. And I was messing around with my profile because I was testing something and I triggered a suspension or a verification. And I couldn't get reinstated because I didn't have signage because I work from home, but I do have an office that I can travel to when needed if I'm meeting a client. So I ended up hiding my address. And now I found every time I run ranking reports, it's run always at my old address because even though I was a storefront for several months and my PIN was at the new location, as soon as I toggled hide your address, the map PIN moved back. So I'm like, okay, why exactly is Google doing this? Like, what's exactly happening behind the scenes? And so basically what I'm concluding is once you toggle hide that address, it's causing the map pin to be like repositioned. So if like it has to anchor somewhere. So if the only plausible thing it's going to anchor to is the address that you created your Google business profile in. So everyone needs to understand that. Like you're going to toggle your address to hide. And if you're not in that same area, you almost always have to create a brand new Google listing and then transfer your reviews. And that's the best solution. You're not going to be able to like troubleshoot this through support because I don't think support understands or is capable of even knowing where your map pin is at that point.
Well, and the other complication is something that Brad Wetherall told me is that support can't even see the address on a hidden address listing. So they won't even be able to tell you where you verified it. They have no idea. So actually, I've run into a couple cases where people don't remember where they verified it. And they're like, I don't know where it was verified. I'm like, well, you'll know because wherever you verified it is where you rank. So if you rank in that city, then that's where you verified it. But there's no way around it other than creating a new listing, which is why you can't move a service area business listing. It's impossible to get around this. But not something a lot of people would know because it's so clunky. You would think, oh, just go add the address. The moment you hide it, it reverts back to the verification address. So stupid.
Correct. And I'm convinced that nobody at Google knows that it functions this way.
Most of the people you're talking to in support would not.
No, I'm saying like even people that like are engineers and create these products, they don't know how this functions because it was probably developed, like years ago. And, whoever developed it, like it's one of those products that was like nobody understands it or it lives in that product. It's not being looked at. And so this is not something that's going to get fixed. But like in my article, I mentioned like geocoding and Google has this like website. It's like for like developer. And so basically you can like enter the address and you'll see exactly where your map pin is going to fall. Mm-hmm. And so now like I just brought on a brand that's mostly SABs and they had 10 locations that didn't have any Google business profiles created and I had to create them. And so before I even create any listing, I run it through that website. And one of the locations I found ended up in the middle of the road. So like, thankfully, I didn't create the listing first. So I could go back to the client and say like, this address is like the pin placement is going here. We don't want that. So like, what is your address exactly? Like there's got to be a typo or something. And then if I had a client that has a storefront, so this can happen if your address is hidden or even if your address is visible. So if you re-verify, if you move or anything happens, your pin still gets stuck at the old location. And so like but you'll know because when somebody hits the driving directions, it'll take you to the old location. So you have to work through it and make sure that the pin placement gets corrected. But in my case, the suite number was added in the address line and not so be very careful when you're typing in the address and make sure you don't have any typos in the zip code because then you can totally mess up your pin placement. And then you're going to go down this rabbit hole of verification and like you're going to get stuck in this verification loop because it's all caused by your pin placement. And this can happen if it's a newer construction or like, the map view isn't like present like in Google's like system. So using that website is like going to be like super helpful for a lot of people that are creating listings is like, make sure like your pin placement's getting put on a rooftop. Like you want it set to a rooftop and not on like a highway median or like in the parking lot. So that's one of the things. And then another thing I touched on was I did this test case where I created a brand new listing called Claudia's Tutoring Service. And I put the city in Detroit. I put the zip code in Ann Arbor and I made up a street name and it went into processing. It didn't get suspended. And thankfully, And then the crazy thing is 3 days later, I got verified. And so I was like, this is crazy. I'm verified. Like now I can like figure this out. So I took the fake address that I created. I put it into the website and I found my pin placement. And then I ran a ranking report at that exact area and I ranked. I didn't rank great, like I ranked 12, but still I was ranking versus like 100 plus. So I knew my pin placement was there. And what was interesting is that there happened to be a road called Manchester I created that road, Manchester, and in that zip code. So it really defaulted to the zip code and it found the road and the zip code. So it didn't know exactly, but it was like, this is the best option to place this pin. Yep. So that's all it's doing. It's like guessing based on the address that you're inputting, where it's going to place that pin placement. And that's exactly where you're going to rank. It's not the address that's visible that you're ranking at. It's where your pin placement is, exactly where you're going to rank at. And that's everything. That determines proximity for everything.
100%. We've seen this with businesses that fall outside of city borders too, right? They have the right city entered. It doesn't matter. It's where the pin is. That pin is not inside the city borders, the limits of what Google Maps puts for the city. You're not going to rank for that city. So that's, certainly true for what we've seen. We have time for like 2 or 3 of these little short rapid fire questions. So I will throw a few of these at you. I'm going to throw you a few rapid fire questions. You have 30 seconds or less to answer them and give it your best shot. All right. So first up, what is the most overrated local SEO tactic?
I don't think anything's really overrated, but if I had to say one, I would say like service area settings. Like people just think that's a ranking factor and it's not. So,
all right, let's go with the reverse. What is the most underrated local SEO tactic?
Primary category and business name alignment.
All righty. What is one thing that business owners are doing that is secretly hurting their reviews?
Getting an influx of reviews in a fast amount of time and not setting it at an organic pace.
Reviews or backlinks? What matters more for 2026?
Reviews.
Agreed. 1,000% agreed.
Yeah.
If your reviews were to stop publishing tomorrow, what is the first thing you would check?
I'd ask a friend to publish a review. And if that didn't publish, I would make sure that I got a local guide to publish a review because a lot of times local guides could get through. So if you notice that reviews aren't publishing, but a local guide might come through, there's almost always certainly a block that's on your profile. And at that point, I guess the panic comes in.
Awesome. Claudia, we just want to thank you for spending so much of your time talking to us today. I'm sure we'll get lots of questions and comments from our audience. And we'll try to get you to answer as many of those as possible. But until then, what would you like to say to anybody? Where can they find you if they want to learn more about what you guys do?
The best option is to follow me on LinkedIn, or you can go to reputationarm.com and subscribe to our newsletter.
Thanks so much for listening, guys, and we'll see you in a future episode.